Interesting. I got to ask, was Philly International more funkier than Motown, or were they more of a continuation of Motown records? You know, when Philly International was big in the 70s with the Mighty Three of Leon Huff, Kenny Gamble, and Tom Bell, they took over the sound. They were dominant. You know, Motown was dominant in the 60s, left Detroit, went to LA, and was more polished. But the Philadelphia International sound was more reflective of the time. It took over in 72 and so on and so forth. Gamble and Huff were like hit making machine. They were like um understood the concept of themes and just were you imagine if Holland Dozier Holland who were dominant in Motown, but you had so many other great writers and producers of Motown. So, you know, but the sound of Philadelphia had a groove to it. It had a formula, you know. The musicianship pretty much stayed in a certain pocket and a groove, so it didn't very veer that far off. And it definitely loans itself to comparable to Motown. But were they more aligned to Stax Records? I can't quite. I will say this: you had strong soulful singers like Billy Paul and obviously Harold Melvin and Teddy Pendergrass and the OJ's. You know, you had an adult themed bass, but it was like sophisticated. But it wasn't gut bucket like Stax, and it wasn't considered bougie esque like Motown was, formula driven. It was pop bass, but it wasn't pop bass like that because it had a certain groove and a root to it. So they fell into an interesting mix. You know, when I think about the Philly sound, big on orchestration, standard pop, standard type of grooves, but I don't want to make it sound like, but it was ear candy melody. You know, when you hear the songs from Philadelphia, you always knew that Philly sound, that Philly soul. Um, it had a certain formula, obviously, that they followed. You know, there was a certain groove that you heard. So, but was it more raw than Motown, or were they Motown 2.0? That's an interesting debate. You know. Now, ask me this: OJ's were one of my favorite groups ever, but I still think the Temptations are the mother of groups, mother and father of groups, the Almighty. You know, the mothership of groups is still the Temptations, the standards. But I love the OJ's. Listen to OJ's. Remember the Blue Notes? Dug them. You know, I remember. Lou Rawls later on, Teddy Pendergrass solo. Philly had a lot of great acts, but do I think they had Motown acts? Do I think they had the acts that would rival that? I like Bunny Sigler a lot, But to be honest with you, I like their sound and their groove. I can't say that they produced the levels of Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder. Can't say that. I like their sound, I think when David Ruffin went solo, Eddie Kendricks went solo, I think they loaned themselves to that Philly style. But I don't think that they, this is one of those interesting things. I like the Philly sound and the vibe, but I think Barry Gordy got it right with the artistry for the longevity for the big picture. But I like the Philly sound. I mean, it was melodic, it was soulful, um, it was strong, rhythmic, and it had a pulsating groove that you could definitely groove to. So if some people are going to battle, was Philly on par with Motown? Well, they were ahead of them from my standing in the 70s when they were in their heyday, you know. But do I think that they ever caught and surpassed Motown? No. No, I don't think they did. But I think for what they did for the era was incredible. Gamble and Huff and Tom Bell was some incredible orchestration, very melodic, and they were like a continuation of that. So the Philly sound was organic, very rooted, very spirited, and had a strong bass to it. I want to say Dexter Winslow as well has some great recordings. They had a lot of great talent come out on that. A lot of great sessions. You always knew the sound, you know. And to me, that's the last time Philly was soulful and happening. Because I'm sorry, neo soul coming out of Philly, all that ain't touching the sound of Philly. No comparison whatsoever. That's the last time Philly to me was soulful, the real soul. And Gamble and Huff were on their own. They were, you know, two of the greatest songwriters production teams ever. Because they got to be probably in my top 5 songwriting production teams ever. And more closer to number one. They're closer. You know, I got Howlin' Doja Howlin' probably ahead. You know, there's very few that I could put ahead of Gamble and Huff, if I'm being honest, for a tag team. Very few. Love what they did, you know. So, but the describing the Philly sound, the sound of Philadelphia, you know, obviously a nod to Motown, but they had a different thing. But I'm just trying to figure if it was more sophisticated or was it comparable, but an extended. So, someone in the comment section, feel free to let me know what you think, where you come down on the sound of Philadelphia and the totality. Please like, subscribe, welcome thoughts, comments, and I do respond. Thank you. Wash your hands, keep your mind clear, watch out for another. Share it if you like, and hit that membership. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay woke, stay free. I'm out. Peace.